The naming ceremony was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. I stood before my entire pack with my newborn son cradled against my chest, his tiny fingers wrapped around mine. 300 wolves had gathered in the great hall of Ashenmore to witness Alpha Draven officially name our heir and reaffirm our mate bond before the ancestors. I had dreamed of this moment through 9 months of carrying his child, through the agonizing labor that nearly killed me, through the sleepless nights of recovery while Draven grew distant, cold, absent from our bed. I told myself it was the pressure of leadership, the stress of the coming alliance negotiations. I told myself that once our son was named, once our bond was sealed permanently before the pack, everything would return to what it was. I was a fool. Draven stood at the altar, magnificent in his ceremonial blacks, his dark hair swept back from a face that had once looked at me with adoration. Now those steel-gray eyes held nothing, not love, not warmth, not even recognition. And beside him, where no one should have stood, was Mireia. Beautiful Mireia, with her river of golden hair and her poisonous smile. My husband's advisor, his confidant, the woman who had whispered in his ear for months while I grew heavy with his child. "Before the ancestors and the moon," Draven announced, his voice echoing through the stunned silence. "I reject Vesna of the Thornwood line as my mate, and Luna of this pack." The words hit me like a physical blow. My knees buckled. "In her place," he continued, not even glancing at me, "I claim Mireia as my true mate and the mother of my future heirs." The hall erupted. Gasps, shouts, and the sound of my world shattering into 1,000 irreparable pieces. My baby began to cry, and Mireia smiled at me with triumph, gleaming in her amber eyes as she took her place at my husband's side. I was cast out that very night. No belongings, no provisions. Just me, my 3-day-old son, and the clothes on my back, stumbling into the frozen wilderness of the Northern Territories. I was meant to die out there. They all knew it. But the universe had other plans, because on the 3rd night, when my milk had dried and my baby's cries had faded to whimpers, when I had collapsed in the snow and begged the moon for death, that's when he found me, the Alpha King of Valdron, the most powerful wolf in the 5 territories, the one they called the Ghost of the North, because no one who saw his face ever lived to describe it. He looked down at me with eyes like molten silver and said 5 words that changed everything. "You belong to me now." 3 days earlier, I had still believed in love. The great hall of Ashenmore was decorated with moonflowers and silver ribbons, the ancient stones draped in the ceremonial colors of our pack. Candles flickered in iron sconces, casting dancing shadows across the faces of 300 wolves who had gathered to witness the naming of their future alpha. I adjusted my son in my arms, wincing at the pull of stitches that hadn't fully healed. The birth had been brutal. 23 hours of labor, blood loss that nearly claimed my life, and a recovery that left me bedridden for days. But I had insisted on being here. This was my moment, our moment. My wolf stirred weakly inside me. She had been quiet since the birth, exhausted. But I felt her lift her head as I approached the altar where Draven waited. My mate, my husband, the alpha I had loved since I was 17 years old. We had been promised to each other since childhood, a political alliance between Ashenmore and my father's pack in Thornwood. But it had become real the moment he first kissed me under the harvest moon, the moment he whispered that I was his and he was mine, forever. 7 years of marriage, 7 years of standing by his side, of supporting his leadership, of weathering every storm together. And now, finally, an heir. I climbed the altar steps slowly, conscious of how pale I must look, how fragile. Draven didn't move to help me, didn't extend his hand, didn't even look at me. He was staring at something behind me. Draven, I whispered when I reached his side. Are you well? Fine. The word was clipped, cold. My wolf whimpered. Something was wrong. His scent, usually warm cedar and wood smoke, had shifted. There was something foreign in it. Something that smelled like gardenias and honey. Like her. I turned my head slightly and saw Mireia standing at the base of the altar, directly in my mate's line of sight. She was dressed in white, as if she were the one being celebrated tonight. Her golden hair cascaded over bare shoulders, and her amber eyes were fixed on Draven with an intimacy that made my stomach lurch. "Let us begin," the elder announced, his ancient voice cutting through my growing unease. "We gather beneath the blessing of the moon to name the heir of Ashenmore and to witness the sacred bond between Alpha and Luna." Draven stepped forward. My heart swelled despite my fears. Here it was, the moment he would hold our son, speak his name to the ancestors, and reaffirm that I was his chosen mate. But he didn't reach for the baby. He didn't even look at our child. "Before the ancestors and the moon," Draven said, and his voice was different, hollow, rehearsed. "I reject Vesna of the Thornwood line as my mate and Luna of this pack." The silence that followed was absolute. Every wolf in the hall stopped breathing. My arms tightened around my son so hard he began to cry. I couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't comprehend. "Draven." My voice cracked. "What are you saying?" He finally looked at me then, and what I saw in his eyes shattered me. Nothing. There was nothing there. No love, no regret, no hesitation. Just empty gray steel, as if the man I had married had been hollowed out and replaced with a stranger. "I'm saying," he continued, loud enough for everyone to hear, "that you are no longer my mate. You are no longer Luna of Ashenmore, and the child you hold is no longer my heir." "No." The word tore from my throat. "No, you can't. The bond, Draven. Feel the bond. It's still there. I can feel it." "I feel nothing," he said flatly. "I haven't felt anything for you in months." Mireia began climbing the altar steps. My wolf howled inside me, throwing herself against my ribs, trying to surge forward and fight. But I was too weak, too broken. 3 days post-birth, still bleeding, still healing, and my mate was rejecting me in front of everyone I knew. "In her place," Draven announced as Mireia reached his side, "I claim Mireia as my true mate and the mother of my future heirs." "No!" I screamed. Mireia's hand slid into Draven's, and she turned to me with a smile that was pure venom. "You should leave now, Vesna," she said softly, sweetly, like honey poured over a blade. "Before this becomes even more embarrassing for you." My legs gave out. I collapsed on the altar steps, clutching my wailing infant, and not a single wolf in that hall moved to help me. They just stared, frozen in shock or too afraid of their alpha to intervene. "Remove her," Draven said, already turning away. "She has until moonset to leave pack territory. After that, she is rogue." Rogue. The word was a death sentence. 2 guards gripped my arms and dragged me down the steps. I screamed, fought, begged. But my body was too weak, my wolf too exhausted, and my mate didn't even look back as they hauled me out of the great hall. The last thing I saw before the doors slammed shut was Mireia pressing her lips to Draven's cheek. And the last thing I heard was her whisper, just loud enough to reach my ears. "Finally, he's mine." They gave me nothing. No food, no water, no coat against the bitter northern cold. Just the thin ceremonial dress I had worn for my son's naming, and a pair of slippers that soaked through within minutes of stepping into the snow. My baby, my nameless baby, cried against my chest. His face was red, his tiny body shaking. I wrapped him tighter in the only blanket I had and stumbled forward into the darkness. The pack border was 3 miles from the Great Hall. 3 miles of frozen forest, of ice-covered streams, of wind that cut through my dress like knives. 3 miles that felt like 300. I kept walking. My wolf was silent now. Not dormant, not resting. Silent in the way wolves go silent when they are preparing to die. Please, I whispered to her. Please, help me, just until we're safe. Nothing. The rejection had damaged her. I could feel the place where the mate bond had been, raw and bleeding like a wound that wouldn't close. Every step sent agony through that wound. Every breath felt like inhaling glass, but I kept walking. For him. For my son, who deserved a name, who deserved to live, who had done nothing wrong except be born to a mother his father had decided to throw away. By the second night, I had crossed the border into the unclaimed wilderness between Ashenmore and the Northern Territories. No pack ruled here. No wolves patrolled. It was empty, frozen, and utterly without mercy. My milk had stopped coming that morning. My son's cries had grown weaker, quieter. He was starving, and I had nothing to give him. I found a hollow beneath an ancient oak, the roots forming a small cave just large enough to shelter us from the wind. I crawled inside, pressed my back against the frozen bark, and held my baby to my chest. "I'm sorry," I sobbed. "I'm so sorry. I tried. I tried to be enough." He didn't cry anymore. He just blinked up at me with eyes that were gray like his father's, eyes that would close soon and never open again. I had failed him. The moon hung overhead, bright and merciless, and I tilted my face toward it. "Take me," I begged. "Take me, but please, please let someone find him. Let someone save him." The wind howled, and then, impossibly, it stopped. Every sound in the forest ceased. The rustle of branches, the creak of ice, even the distant howl of wild wolves. Everything went silent, as if the world itself was holding its breath. My wolf's head snapped up inside me. Someone was coming. I couldn't see him at first. He moved like shadow, like smoke, emerging from the darkness between the trees without disturbing a single branch. And then he was there, standing at the entrance to my hollow, and the moonlight finally revealed his face. He was tall, taller than any wolf I had ever seen, with broad shoulders and a powerful frame that seemed carved from the same ice that surrounded us. His hair was black as a raven's wing, falling past his jaw in wind-swept waves. His skin was pale, almost unnaturally so, as if he had never seen sunlight. But it was his eyes that stopped my heart. Silver, pure molten silver, glowing faintly in the darkness like a predator's gaze. I knew those eyes. Everyone in the 5 territories knew those eyes. The Alpha King of Valdron, the ghost of the North, the wolf who ruled the most brutal, most feared pack in existence. The one they said had killed his own father to take the throne. The one they said had never shown mercy to anyone, Cormac the Merciless. He looked at me, at my trembling body, my dying child, my hollow eyes. And then he crouched down, bringing his face level with mine, and spoke in a voice like winter itself. "You belong to me now." I couldn't speak, couldn't move. My wolf, who had been silent for days, suddenly surged forward with a force that made me gasp. She wanted to submit. She wanted to bare her throat to this terrifying stranger and beg for his protection. She wanted to live. "I don't understand," I managed. "Why would you—" "You're dying," he said simply. "So is your pup. I'm offering you a choice." "What choice?" His pale gaze flickered down to my son, then back to my face. "Come with me. Become my queen. Give me heirs, and I will give you everything you need to survive." The world tilted. "Your queen?" I whispered. "You don't even know me." "I know enough." He straightened, extending one pale hand toward me. I know Draven of Ashenmore rejected his fated mate at a naming ceremony. I know he did so publicly, brutally, and without cause. I know you are the daughter of the Thornwood Alpha, which means your bloodline is ancient and powerful. And I know that you have spent 3 days in this wilderness with a newborn, and you're still alive. Something shifted in his moonlit stare. That's more than enough. My head spun. This couldn't be real. And the most feared alpha in existence was offering me a crown. There must be conditions, I said. There are. He didn't lower his hand. You will be my queen in name. You will give me children to secure my succession. You will stand beside me at formal functions when required. And in return? In return, you will have power, protection, and revenge. His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Draven of Ashenmore will watch his rejected mate become the most powerful Luna in the 5 territories. He will watch his nameless bastard become Prince of Valdron, and he will spend the rest of his miserable life knowing that he threw away the only woman worthy of him. My breath caught. Revenge. He was offering me revenge. Why? I asked. Why would you do this for a stranger? Cormac's frost-colored eyes darkened. Because I have my own reasons for wanting Draven to suffer. He tilted his head, studying me. And because I need a queen who will never love me. The words hit me like a blow. What? I require an heir, he said. But I have no interest in a mate who will expect affection, devotion, or emotional attachment. You have just had your heart destroyed by the man you loved. You will never make the mistake of loving again. I stared at him. He was right. The very idea of love made me want to vomit. The thought of ever trusting another wolf, ever opening my heart again, was inconceivable. A marriage of convenience, I whispered. A marriage of mutual benefit. He still hadn't lowered his hand. You get safety, status, and vengeance. I get an heir without the complication of romantic entanglement. Neither of us pretends it's anything more than that. My son stirred weakly against my chest. I looked down at his tiny face, at the gray eyes that were fluttering closed, and I made my choice. I took the Alpha King's hand. His skin was ice cold. The journey to Valdron took 3 days. Cormac had brought a covered sleigh, drawn by horses so black they seemed to absorb the moonlight. Inside, there were furs, blankets, and a wet nurse who took my son from my arms and immediately began feeding him. I wept. For the first time since the rejection, I allowed myself to completely break down. The wet nurse said nothing, just held my baby to her breast and let him drink, and I sobbed into a pile of furs while the sleigh carried us north. Cormac didn't ride inside with us. He ran alongside in wolf form, a massive beast of pure black with those unsettling pale eyes. I caught glimpses of him through the sleigh's small window, moving through the snow with a speed and grace that shouldn't have been possible. He was magnificent and terrifying. On the 2nd day, the wet nurse finally spoke. Your son is strong, my lady. Her name was Brinley, a soft-spoken Omega with kind eyes. He lost weight, but he's recovering quickly. He'll be healthy. Thank you, I whispered. It was all I could manage. The king, Brinley continued carefully. He isn't what the stories say. I looked at her sharply. The stories say he killed his father. His father was a monster. Brinley's voice dropped. The things that man did to his own children, to his people. When Cormac took the throne, he didn't just kill his father. He liberated an entire kingdom. I didn't know what to say to that. He's cold, Brinley admitted. Distant. He doesn't let anyone close. But he isn't cruel, my lady. Not to those who don't deserve it. Before I could respond, the sleigh began to slow. We had arrived. The obsidian palace rose from the mountains like a frozen dream. Black stone towers stretched toward a gray sky, their peaks lost in swirling clouds. The walls were carved with ancient runes that seemed to shimmer with faint blue light. And everywhere, there was ice. But it wasn't cold. As I stepped out of the sleigh, I realized the air inside the palace walls was warm, heated by some magic I couldn't see. Servants in dark livery rushed forward to take my furs, to guide me toward the great doors, and every single one of them bowed. "Welcome, my lady," they murmured. "Welcome to Valdron." My lady. Not rogue, not rejected, not the woman Draven threw away. My lady. Cormac appeared beside me in human form, dressed now in black leather and a long coat lined with silver fur. His dark hair was damp from snow, pushed back from a face that was devastatingly handsome in a sharp, severe way. "The council is waiting," he said without preamble. "We'll formalize the arrangement now." Now? I looked down at myself. I was still wearing the tattered remains of my ceremonial dress. Still dirty. Still exhausted. Shouldn't I at least? The council has heard rumors of my return with a woman and child. Cormac met my gaze. "If we don't formalize this immediately, they will assume you are a prisoner or a plaything. Neither assumption ends well for you." I swallowed. "Then let's go." The council chamber was carved from the same black stone as the rest of the palace, but here the walls were lined with torches that burned blue instead of orange. 7 wolves sat at a long table, their ages ranging from a young woman with sharp features to an ancient man whose eyes had gone milky with blindness. They all turned when Cormac entered. "Your Majesty." The eldest rose, bowing stiffly. "We heard you returned with company." "I have." Cormac gestured for me to step forward. "This is Vesna of the Thornwood line, formerly Luna of Ashenmore. She will be my queen." The silence that followed was absolute. Then the young woman at the end of the table laughed. "You can't be serious." She rose, her dark hair swinging. "This is Draven's rejected mate, his cast-off. You want to make her queen of Valdron?" "I do. The other packs will see it as an insult." The young woman's voice rose. "They'll say you couldn't find a proper queen, so you took someone else's trash." My wolf snarled inside me. Before I could stop myself, I stepped forward. "Trash?" My voice came out stronger than I expected. "I am the daughter of Alpha Thornwood. My bloodline extends back 17 generations to the founding packs. My mother was a healer who saved 300 lives during the plague of 1992. And I carried my 3-day-old son through frozen wilderness for 3 nights without food, water, or shelter." I met the young woman's eyes. "I am not trash, and you will not speak to me that way again." Silence. The young woman's face flushed with anger, but before she could respond, Cormac spoke. "Nira." His voice was soft, dangerous. "Apologize to your future queen." The young woman, Nira, went pale. "Your Majesty, I—" Now. Nalira's jaw clenched, but she lowered her head. "I apologize, my lady. I spoke out of turn. I didn't acknowledge her. I just turned back to Cormac, my heart pounding. His moonlit gaze held something I couldn't read. Surprise, perhaps, or reassessment. The terms," the eldest counselor interrupted, clearly trying to regain control of the meeting. "We must discuss the terms of this union." Cormac nodded. "The terms are straightforward." He moved to stand beside me, his presence like a wall of ice at my back. "Vesna will be my queen. She will have full authority over the household, the servants, and the domestic affairs of the kingdom. Her son will be raised as a prince of Valdron, with all the rights and privileges that entails." My breath caught. Her son will be raised as a prince. He was offering to legitimize my child, the child Draven had disowned, the nameless baby who should have been heir to Ashenmore. "In exchange," Cormac continued, "she will give me heirs. Our children will inherit the throne after me. The Thornwood bloodline will merge with the royal line of Valdron." "And the mate bond?" the blind counselor asked quietly. Will you perform the claiming ritual? Cormac hesitated. It was barely noticeable, just a fractional pause, but I caught it, and my wolf stirred uneasily. The claiming will happen when appropriate, Cormac said finally. For now, the marriage will be formalized by contract. No claiming, no bite, no true mate bond, just like Draven had promised me once, just like every man who had ever made me promises. But this was different. Cormac wasn't pretending to love me. He was offering a transaction, clear and honest. That was more than Draven had ever given me. I agree to the terms, I said clearly. The council exchanged glances. Very well. The eldest counselor produced a scroll. Sign here, my lady. I signed. Cormac signed. And just like that, I was betrothed to the Alpha King. The council filed out slowly, murmuring amongst themselves. Nira shot me one last venomous look before disappearing through the doors. But I barely noticed. Because Cormac had turned to me, and his expression had shifted. You handled yourself well, he said quietly. Better than I expected. I've spent 7 years as Luna of Ashenmore. I kept my voice steady. I know how to deal with wolves who think they can bully me. Something flickered across his face. Good. He stepped closer, and I caught his scent for the first time. Pine and frost and something darker beneath. Something that made my wolf's ears perk up with sudden interest. Because Nira is my sister, and she will not be the last member of this court to test you. His sister. The woman who had called me trash was his own blood. Why does she hate me already? I asked. Because she was supposed to be queen. Cormac's voice held no emotion. She's been positioning herself as my heir for years. Your arrival threatens everything she's built. A chill ran down my spine. Is she dangerous? Cormac held my gaze for a long moment. Everyone in this palace is dangerous, Vesna. He turned toward the door, then paused. Including me. Before I could respond, another figure appeared in the doorway. A woman, tall and elegant, with silver hair that fell to her waist and eyes that matched Cormac's exactly. She moved like water, smooth and silent, and when she looked at me, her gaze cut straight through to my soul. So, she said softly, this is the new queen. Cormac's entire body went rigid. Mother, he said, and his voice held something I hadn't heard before. Fear. The silver-haired woman smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Instead, something calculating flickered there, something hungry that made my skin crawl. We need to talk about what you're really bringing into this palace, my son. Her gaze never left mine, because I can see what she is, even if she doesn't know it yet. My blood went cold. What I am? I whispered. What do you mean? What I am? The woman's smile widened, and somewhere deep inside me, in a place I didn't know existed, something ancient stirred. The silver-haired woman circled me like a predator assessing prey. I stood frozen in the council chamber, my heart hammering against my ribs, while Cormac watched with an expression I couldn't read. His mother moved with unsettling grace, her pale eyes never blinking. Do you know what you are, child? She asked softly. I'm a wolf. My voice came out steadier than I felt. Daughter of Thornwood, former Luna of Ashenmore. You're more than that. She stopped directly in front of me, close enough that I could see the faint silver veins beneath her translucent skin. Much more. Can't you feel it? That thing sleeping inside you? My wolf stirred uneasily, and beneath her, deeper, in a place I had never noticed before, something else shifted. I don't know what you're talking about, I whispered. Seraphine. Cormac's voice cut through the air like a blade. Enough. His mother turned to him with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. You brought her here without knowing, didn't you? She laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a storm. Oh, my son, you thought you were rescuing a rejected Luna. But what you've actually done is bring a dormant vessel into the heart of Valdron. The word meant nothing to me. But Cormac's face went pale. That's impossible, he said. The vessels died out centuries ago. Clearly not. Seraphine gestured toward me. Look at her aura if you don't believe me. Look at what's coiled around her soul. Cormac's gaze focused on me with new intensity. I felt his attention like a physical touch, sliding over my skin, probing somewhere deeper. His jaw tightened. Moon's blood, he breathed. What? I demanded. What is a vessel? What are you seeing? Neither of them answered. Tell me. My voice rose. This is my body, my soul. Whatever you're talking about, I have a right to know. Seraphine studied me for a long moment. A vessel, she said finally, is a wolf born with the ability to channel the moon's power directly. In ancient times, they were queens and high priestesses. Their magic could heal entire packs or destroy enemy armies. Dread pooled in my stomach. I don't have magic. I've never... Because it's dormant. Seraphine's eyes gleamed. Locked away, probably since birth. Someone bound it. Someone who knew what you were and wanted to keep you weak. My father's face flashed through my mind. The way he had always treated me differently from my siblings. The rituals he insisted I participate in every full moon. Rituals he said were tradition, but that always left me feeling drained and empty. The tea he made me drink every morning. Bitter herbs that he claimed were for my health. No, I whispered. That can't be right. It doesn't matter. Cormac's voice was hard. Whatever she is, she's under my protection now. No one touches her. No one experiments on her. No one tries to unlock anything without her explicit consent. He shot his mother a warning look. Including you. Seraphine raised her hands in mock surrender. I wouldn't dream of it. But her smile said otherwise. I'm merely suggesting that you've acquired something far more valuable than a broodmare, my son. Use that knowledge wisely. She swept out of the chamber, and leaving silence in her wake. I couldn't stop shaking. Is it true? I asked Cormac. Am I really what she says? He was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. His pale gaze met mine. But I intend to find out. Carefully. Safely. And only with your permission. Something loosened in my chest. Why do you care about my permission? I'm just your contracted queen, a means to an heir. Cormac's expression shifted, something vulnerable flickering beneath the ice. You're more than that now. He turned away before I could read his face. The wedding is tomorrow. Get some rest. You'll need it. Tomorrow. I was getting married tomorrow. The ceremony took place at midnight, beneath a full moon that hung over the obsidian palace like a watchful eye. I stood at the altar in a gown of black silk and silver thread, my hair braided with moonstones that the servants had woven in that morning. My son, finally named Ashwin after the ancient word for hope, slept in Brinley's arms at the front of the gathered crowd. 300 wolves of Valdron had come to witness their king take a queen, and every single one of them was staring at me. I could hear the whispers, see the sidelong glances. They knew who I was. Draven's rejected mate. The woman thrown out of Ashenmore with nothing but a dying infant. They were waiting for me to fail. But I had spent 7 years as Luna. I knew how to hold my head high when wolves wanted to tear me down. So I walked toward the altar with my spine straight and my eyes forward. And when I reached Cormac's side, something unexpected happened. He offered me his hand, not demanded, not grabbed. Offered, palm up, to an invitation rather than a command. I took it. His skin was cold, just like before, but his grip was gentle, careful. And when the elder began speaking the ceremonial words, Cormac's thumb traced a small circle against my palm. Soothing. He was soothing me. My wolf stirred with surprise. Do you, Cormac of the Valdron line, take this woman as your queen, your partner, your mate? I do. His voice carried through the silent hall. And do you, Vesna of the Thornwood line, take this man as your king, your partner, your mate? I looked up at Cormac's face, at those frost-colored eyes that held no warmth but no cruelty either, at the sharp jaw and the pale skin and the dark hair that fell across his forehead. He was a stranger, a terrifying, powerful stranger who had pulled me from the snow and offered me a crown. But he was also the only person who had shown me kindness in days. I do, I said. The elder nodded. Then by the power of the moon and the ancestors, I pronounce you bound. You may seal your vows. The crowd held its breath. This was the moment. Would he claim me, bite my neck, and make me truly his? Or would he honor our agreement and keep things contractual? Cormac turned to face me fully. His hands came up to cup my face, cold palms against my flushed cheeks. I trembled, waiting for his teeth at my throat. But instead, he leaned down and pressed his lips to my forehead. The kiss was soft, tender. It lasted only a moment. But when he pulled back, I saw something flicker in his pale gaze. Something that looked almost like regret. My queen, he said quietly. The crowd erupted in cheers. And I stood there, my forehead tingling, my heart racing, wondering why that simple kiss had affected me more than 7 years of Draven's passion ever had. The wedding feast lasted until dawn. I sat at the high table beside Cormac, accepting congratulations from wolves whose names I couldn't remember, eating food I couldn't taste, smiling until my face ached. Ashwin had been taken to the nursery hours ago, and I longed to go to him, to hold him, to remind myself why I was doing all of this. But queens didn't leave their own wedding feasts, so I stayed, and I watched. I watched Nira glaring at me from across the hall, her dark eyes promising retribution. I watched Seraphine holding court among the elder wolves, her silver hair gleaming as she whispered things that made them look at me with new speculation. I watched the servants moving like shadows, efficient and silent, where their eyes carefully averted from their king, and I watched Cormac. He barely ate, barely drank. He sat rigid in his throne, acknowledging well-wishers with nods and monosyllables, his gaze constantly scanning the crowd as if searching for threats. He wasn't enjoying this any more than I was. "You don't like crowds," I murmured under the noise. His eyes flickered to me. "No." "Then why have such a large wedding?" "Because politics demands it." His voice was flat. "The other packs need to see that Valdron has a queen, that the succession is secure, that I'm not as vulnerable as they hoped." Vulnerable. The most powerful alpha in the 5 territories was worried about appearing vulnerable. "Is that why you chose me?" I asked quietly. "To look less vulnerable?" Cormac was silent for a long moment. "Partially," he admitted. "A rejected Luna makes a powerful statement. It tells the other alphas that I can take whatever I want, even another man's mate." The words should have hurt. They didn't. I had known from the start that this was political. And the other part? His jaw tightened. "I told you, I need a queen who won't expect love." "Because you can't give it?" The question came out before I could stop it. Cormac's entire body went still. "Because I won't," he said finally. "There's a difference." Before I could respond, the music changed. The elder rose and announced that it was time for the king and queen to retire. My stomach dropped. The wedding night. I had tried not to think about it, had focused on surviving each moment rather than anticipating what came next. But now the crowd was parting, creating a path toward the great doors. And Cormac was rising from his throne. He offered his hand again. I took it. The walk through the palace was silent. Our footsteps echoed against the black stone floors, past torches that burned blue, past tapestries depicting ancient battles and long-dead kings. Cormac didn't speak. Neither did I. When we reached his chambers, he pushed open the heavy doors and gestured for me to enter first. The room was larger than my entire quarters at Ashenmore. A massive bed dominated one wall, draped in black silk and silver furs. A fire burned in a hearth carved from obsidian, casting dancing shadows across the floor. And everywhere, there were books. Shelves upon shelves of them, reaching toward a ceiling lost in darkness. "You read?" I said, surprised. "Constantly." Cormac closed the door behind us. "Is that unexpected?" "The Ghost of the North isn't known for his scholarly pursuits." Something that might have been amusement flickered across his face. "The Ghost of the North isn't known for anything except death." He moved toward a table where wine had been laid out. "Would you like a drink?" "Yes." My voice was steady despite my racing heart. "Please." He poured 2 glasses and handed me one. Our fingers brushed during the exchange, and I shivered at the cold of his skin. "You're always so cold," I whispered. Cormac's hand stilled. "Yes." "Why?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he drained his wine in one long swallow and set the glass down. "It's a condition." His voice was carefully neutral. "It runs in my family." "Seraphine is cold too?" "My entire line." He turned to face me, and his pale gaze was shuttered. "The kings of Valdron have always been creatures of ice. It's why we rule the northern territories. The cold doesn't bother us because we are the cold." There was more to it. I could hear the things he wasn't saying pressing against the edges of his words. But I didn't push. He had respected my boundaries. I would respect his. "The consummation," I said instead, forcing my voice to remain steady. "Is it required tonight?" Cormac studied me. "For political legitimacy, yes. The council will expect proof that the marriage is complete." "And what you expect?" He was quiet for a long moment. "I expect nothing." He set down his glass. "I told you this arrangement would be on your terms. If you need more time." "I don't." The words surprised me. "I want to get it over with." Wrong words. I saw him flinch, just slightly, all before his expression smoothed. "Very well." He moved toward the bed, and I followed on trembling legs. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. This was nothing like my wedding night with Draven, full of love and anticipation and desperate passion. This was a contract being fulfilled. Cormac sat on the edge of the bed and looked up at me. "I won't hurt you," he said quietly, "and I won't take anything you don't willingly give. If at any point you want to stop, say so. I will stop." My throat tightened. Draven had never said anything like that. Draven had taken what he wanted, when he wanted, assuming my consent rather than asking for it. "Thank you," I whispered. Cormac reached for me slowly, giving me time to pull away. When I didn't, his hand settled on my waist, cold even through the silk of my gown. "May I undress you?" I nodded, not trusting my voice. His fingers found the laces at my back. He worked them loose with careful patience, never rushing, never grabbing. The gown slipped from my shoulders and pooled at my feet, leaving me in only a thin shift. His gaze dropped to my body, then rose to my face. "You're beautiful," he said. And there was no heat in the words, no lust, just a simple statement of fact. Somehow, that was more affecting than any passionate declaration. What followed was gentle, so gentle it made me want to weep. His hands mapped my body with careful attention, learning what made me gasp, what made me arch into him. And when we finally came together, he held my gaze the entire time, those pale eyes searching mine for any sign of pain or reluctance. There was none. When it was over, He didn't immediately pull away. He stayed above me, breathing hard, his forehead pressed to mine. And in that moment, with our bodies still joined, I felt something flicker in the dead space where my mate bond used to be. Not a bond. Not yet. But the potential for one. Vesna, Cormac murmured. Yes? He opened his mouth to speak, and then his entire body seized. His eyes went wide. His back arched. Frost began spreading across his chest, crackling over his skin in spidery patterns of ice. Cormac! I grabbed his shoulders. What's happening? Cormac! He collapsed beside me, convulsing, his lips turning blue. I screamed for help. But as the guards burst through the door and the healers came running, one thought echoed through my terror. This wasn't a condition. This was a curse. The healers worked through the night. I sat in the corner of Cormac's chambers, wrapped in a robe, watching them pour potions down his throat and press heated stones to his chest. The frost had spread from his torso to his arms, his neck, and his face. He looked like a statue carved from ice, beautiful and still and barely breathing. What's wrong with him? I demanded for the 100th time. Tell me what's happening. The head healer, an ancient wolf named Thornwick, exchanged a glance with his assistants. It's the family affliction, Your Majesty. The kings of Valdron have carried it for generations. Affliction. I rose from my chair. Seraphine said it was a condition, something that made them cold. Thornwick hesitated. It begins as cold, yes, but it progresses. With each generation, the ice spreads deeper, claims more of them. Ice shot through my veins. Are you saying he's dying? I'm saying he's been dying since the day he was born. Thornwick's voice was heavy with resignation. Every king of Valdron since the curse was placed has died young. Cormac's father lasted until 43. His grandfather, 38. He looked at me with something like pity. Cormac is already 31. We've been waiting for the deterioration to begin. The air left my lungs. What triggers it? Why tonight? The healer's eyes dropped. We don't know, Your Majesty. Sometimes it's stress. Sometimes emotion. Sometimes. He trailed off. Sometimes what? Sometimes it's connection. His voice was barely a whisper. The more a king of Valdron allows himself to feel, the faster the ice claims him. Connection. I thought of the way Cormac had touched me, the gentleness, the care, and the way he had looked at me like I was something precious. I had done this to him. No. My voice cracked. No, that can't be right. We barely know each other. There's no connection, no bond, nothing. There doesn't have to be love, Your Majesty. Thornwick's gaze was gentle. Just the potential for it. The opening of a door that was meant to stay closed. I sank back into my chair. This was why he had chosen me. Not just because I couldn't love again, but because he needed someone incapable of making him feel. Someone who would keep her distance, maintain the contract, never tempt him into opening that door. And on our very first night together, I had ruined everything. Cormac woke 3 days later. I had barely left his chambers in that time, had slept in the chair by his bed, eaten only when Brinley forced food into my hands. Shannon spent hours watching the frost retreat slowly from his skin. When his pale eyes finally opened, I was there. You should be resting, he said. His voice was hoarse, weak. Not sitting vigil over a dying king. You're not dying. The words came out fierce. I won't allow it. Something flickered in his expression. Amusement, maybe. Or surprise. You won't allow it? No. I leaned forward, gripping the edge of his bed. I've already lost one mate. I refuse to lose another. The word hung between us. Mate. I hadn't meant to say it. Cormac wasn't my mate. Not really. We had no bond, no claiming, nothing but a contract and a single night together. But the word felt right, somehow. Vesna, Cormac said quietly. You need to understand something. I already know. My voice shook. Thornwick told me. The curse. The ice. The reason you can't let yourself feel anything. I know. His jaw tightened. Then you know why this marriage needs to stay purely contractual. Why I can't. What if I could break it? He went still. What? The curse. I stood, pacing to the window. Seraphine said I'm a vessel, that I have dormant power. What if I could use it to break the curse on your line? That's not possible. How do you know? I spun to face him. Has anyone ever tried? Has any queen of Valdron ever been a vessel before? Cormac's expression was unreadable. The last vessel died 300 years ago, around the same time the curse was placed. My mind raced. That's not a coincidence. I stepped closer to the bed. Someone cursed your family after the vessels died out. Which means a vessel might be exactly what's needed to undo it. Or a vessel might make it worse. His voice was sharp. We don't know what you are, Vesna. We don't know what power is locked inside you. Unleashing it blindly could destroy us both. Then we find out carefully. I sat on the edge of his bed, close enough to feel the cold radiating from his body. Your mother said my power was bound. Someone knew what I was and suppressed it. If we can figure out who and why, maybe we can find answers. Cormac studied me for a long moment. Why do you care so much? He asked finally. You've known me for less than a week. This isn't your burden. The question stopped me. Why did I care? He was right. We were strangers, bound by convenience. I owed him nothing beyond the terms of our contract. But I thought of the way he had kissed my forehead at our wedding, the way he had asked permission before touching me, the way he had looked at me during our joining, as if my pleasure mattered more than his own. Because you saved me, I said quietly. You saved my son. You gave us a home when everyone else left us to die. I met his pale gaze. I don't know if I can love you, Cormac. I'm not sure I'm capable of that anymore. But I can fight for you. I can try to save you the way you saved me. Something shifted in his expression. His hand reached out, cold fingers wrapping around mine. You are nothing like I expected, he murmured. Is that good or bad? I don't know yet. His thumb traced across my knuckles. But I'm beginning to think this contract may have been a terrible idea. My heart stuttered. Because of the curse? Because of you. His frost-colored eyes held mine. I chose you because I thought you'd be safe. Broken. Incapable of reaching me. His grip tightened. But you're not broken, Vesna. You're the strongest wolf I've ever met. And that makes you very, very dangerous. I didn't know what to say, so I leaned forward and pressed my lips to his forehead, the same way he had kissed mine at our wedding. He shivered beneath me. Rest, I whispered. We'll figure out the curse together. But first, you need to heal. The weeks that followed changed everything. What had begun as a contract slowly transformed into something else. Cormac insisted on taking meals with me once he recovered. At first, the dinners were silent, awkward, two strangers sharing food without sharing words. But gradually, we began to talk. He told me about his childhood, about a father who beat him for showing weakness and a mother who watched without intervening, about the day he killed his father, not for power, but to protect his younger sister from the same fate. I told him about Draven, about the love that had curdled into indifference long before the rejection, about the nights I had spent alone while he worked late, wondering why my mate no longer wanted to touch me. We talked about our fears, our hopes, our impossible situation. And somewhere along the way, the ice in his eyes began to thaw. He started visiting my chambers in the evenings, not for consummation, not for heirs, but just to sit by the fire and read while I nursed Ashwin. Sometimes he would fall asleep in the chair, and I would drape a blanket over him, marveling at how young he looked in rest. The council noticed. The servants noticed. Everyone noticed that the cold king was softening, and I noticed that every time he let his guard down, the frost on his skin grew slightly darker. 2 months after our wedding, I woke in the middle of the night to find Cormac standing by my window, staring at the moon. "What's wrong?" I asked, sitting up. He didn't turn. "I felt the bond," he said quietly. My heart stopped. "What?" "Just now, while I was sleeping." He finally looked at me, and his pale eyes were filled with something I had never seen before. Terror. I felt the potential for a mate bond forming between us. I couldn't speak. "It's never happened before." His voice shook. "With anyone. I thought I was immune to it. Thought the curse had frozen that part of me years ago. Cormac, I need to stay away from you." The words came out ragged. "I need to maintain distance, keep things contractual, or the ice will—" "No." I threw off my blankets and crossed to him. "I won't let you pull away." I grabbed his hands, ignoring their bitter cold. "I won't let you freeze yourself to death because you're afraid of feeling something." "I'm not afraid of feeling something." His eyes blazed. "I'm afraid of killing you by feeling it. Don't you understand? If the bond forms, if I let myself love you, the curse will accelerate. I'll die, and you'll be left alone, bonded to a dead man, broken beyond repair." Tears burned in my eyes. "Then we break the curse before it gets that far." "We don't know how—" "Then we find out." I squeezed his hands. "I'm a vessel, Cormac. There's power inside me that someone went to great lengths to suppress. Power that might be the key to saving you." I stepped closer, forcing him to meet my eyes. "Let me try. Let me fight for you." He stared at me for a long moment. Then his cold hands came up to cup my face. "You impossible woman," he whispered. And he kissed me. Not on the forehead, not on the hand. He kissed me properly, deeply, his cold lips moving against mine with desperate hunger. And I kissed him back, pouring everything I felt into that single point of contact. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he pressed his forehead to mine. "If we do this," he said quietly, "if we try to break the curse, you need to know something." "What?" His pale gaze met mine. "I'm already in love with you, Vesna. And I've been falling since the moment you told Nira you weren't trash." His hands trembled against my face. "And if we fail, if the curse takes me before we find the answer, I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me you'll take Ashwin and run. Take him somewhere safe, somewhere far from Valdron, and raise him to be good. Don't let him become what I am." Tears spilled down my cheeks. "I promise," I whispered. "But we're not going to fail." He kissed me again, softer this time. And as the moon watched over us, something clicked into place deep inside my chest. The dormant power stirred, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly awake. The next 3 months were the happiest of my life. Cormac and I stopped pretending. We dined together openly, walked the palace gardens with Ashwin between us, and spent our nights tangled in each other's arms. The council whispered. The servants smiled. Even Nalira's hostility softened into something closer to grudging acceptance. "You're good for him," she admitted one afternoon, catching me in the library. I didn't think anyone could be. I looked up from the ancient text I'd been studying. Research on vessels had become my obsession, though the palace archives held frustratingly little. "I thought you hated me," I said carefully. Nalira's dark eyes flickered with something like shame. "I hated what you represented, a threat to my position, a reminder that my brother could choose someone over me." She sat across from me, her posture rigid. "But I've watched you these past weeks. You're not trying to replace me. Yet you're trying to save him." "I am." "Then we want the same thing." She leaned forward. "Let me help you research. I know these archives better than anyone. It was the beginning of an unexpected alliance. Together, Nira and I dug through centuries of records, searching for any mention of vessels, of the curse, of how the two might be connected. We found fragments, hints, and pieces of a puzzle that refused to form a complete picture. Until the night, everything changed. I was in Cormac's chambers when the pain hit. We had been lying together, my head on his chest, his cold fingers tracing patterns on my back. The fire crackled low in the hearth, and for once, he felt almost warm against me. I could stay like this forever, I murmured. So could I. His voice was soft, vulnerable. Vesna, I need to tell you something. I lifted my head to look at him. His pale eyes were brighter than I'd ever seen them, glowing faintly in the firelight. I love you, he said. Not as a contract, not as an arrangement. I love you completely, desperately, in a way I never thought I was capable of. My heart soared. I love you too, I whispered. I think I have since the moment you kissed my forehead at our wedding. He smiled, a real smile, rare and beautiful, and then his face contorted in agony. Cormac! Frost exploded across his chest like shattered glass. It spread faster than I had ever seen, racing up his neck, down his arms, crystallizing across his skin in patterns of deadly ice. No! I grabbed his shoulders. No, 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 not now, please. His body convulsed. His eyes rolled back. And the temperature in the room plummeted so dramatically that my breath came out in visible clouds. I screamed for the healers. They came running, but I could see the despair in their faces before they even reached the bed. This was worse than before. So much worse. The curse is accelerating, Thornwick said grimly. His confession of love must have triggered a deeper phase. Then we take it back. I was sobbing now. We pretend we don't feel it. We go back to the contract. It doesn't work that way, Your Majesty. Thornwick's voice was heavy. Once love is acknowledged, it cannot be unfelt. The curse knows. It always knows. I looked down at Cormac's frozen form. His lips were blue. His skin was white as snow. The frost had spread to cover nearly his entire body, leaving only his face exposed. And even as I watched, ice began creeping across his cheeks. How long? I demanded. Thornwick hesitated. How long does he have? Days. The word fell like a death sentence. Perhaps a week if we keep him warm. But without a miracle, Your Majesty. He shook his head. The king will not survive the month. I didn't sleep that night. I sat beside Cormac's frozen body, holding his ice-cold hand, and I made a decision. No more research. No more careful study. I needed to unlock my vessel powers now, regardless of the risk. Whatever was dormant inside me, whatever my father had suppressed all those years ago, I had to release it. Because I refused to let Cormac die. When dawn broke, I summoned Seraphine. She arrived in my chambers with that knowing smile that always made my skin crawl. You want me to unbind your powers? She said before I could speak. Can you do it? Perhaps. She circled me slowly. But you should understand what you're asking. Your father didn't just suppress your abilities. He locked them behind a blood seal. Breaking it will require a sacrifice. What kind of sacrifice? Blood for blood. Her pale eyes gleamed. Someone of your father's line must die to break what he created. My stomach dropped. You mean I have to kill my father? Or someone who shares his blood? Seraphine's smile widened. There's no other way. Blood magic demands blood payment. No. The word came out fierce. I won't kill anyone. There has to be another option. Then your mate will die. Seraphine shrugged elegantly. The choice is yours, daughter. She swept out of the room, leaving me alone with an impossible decision. That night, Nira found me weeping in the library. What did my mother tell you? She demanded, kneeling beside my chair. I told her everything. The blood seal, the sacrifice, the impossible choice. Nalira's expression darkened. She's lying. I looked up sharply. What? My mother lies about everything. Nalira gripped my hands. She's been manipulating this family for decades. Whatever she told you, there's another way. There's always another way with blood magic. How do you know? Because I've studied it. Nalira's voice dropped. I've studied everything about the curse, Vesna. I've been trying to break it since I was a child, and I've found things. Things my mother doesn't want anyone to know. My heart pounded. What things? Nalira glanced at the door, then leaned closer. The curse wasn't placed by an enemy, she whispered. It was placed by someone inside the family's history. A vessel from Thornwood 300 years ago, a woman named Lisara, who loved a king of Valdron and was betrayed by him. The air left my lungs. And my mother has been maintaining it ever since, Nalira continued. Feeding Cormarmac herbs that accelerate the ice, keeping him weak so she can control him. Why? Because weak kings are easy to control, and my mother has been the true power behind Valdron's throne for 30 years. My mind raced. If Seraphine was actively making the curse worse, then breaking it wasn't just about unlocking my powers. It was about stopping her. We need proof, I said. I know where to find it. Nalira stood. My mother keeps a private study in the East Tower. No one is allowed inside. But if the answers exist anywhere, they're there. I rose to my feet. Then let's go. The East Tower was locked with magic. Nalira pressed her palm against the door and spoke words in a language I didn't recognize. The lock glowed blue, then clicked open. How did you know that? I whispered. I've been watching my mother for years. Nalira pushed the door open. Learning her secrets, waiting for the right moment to use them. The study beyond was small and cluttered. Shelves lined every wall, stuffed with books and bottles and strange artifacts. A desk dominated the center, covered in papers and crystals and what looked like dried herbs. Start searching, Nalira said. Look for anything about the curse, about vessels, about blood magic. We tore through the room in desperate silence. I found letters from wolves I didn't recognize, written in coded language. When I found jars of powder labeled with symbols that made my skin crawl. I found a portrait of a young woman with silver hair and my exact same eyes. Nalira. My voice shook. Who is this? She looked at the portrait and went pale. That's Lisara of Thornwood, she whispered. The last vessel, the one who died 300 years ago. I stared at the face in the painting. She looked like me. Not just similar. Identical. The same eyes, the same cheekbones, the same stubborn set to the jaw. She was from Thornwood, I breathed. My family's pack. She must be your ancestor. Nalira's voice was awed. That's why you're a vessel. The power passed down through your bloodline. I turned the portrait over. There was writing on the back. Faded, ancient, but still legible. Lisara of Thornwood, I read aloud. Who loved the king of Valdron and was betrayed. Who cursed his line to never know love as she was denied it. Who died believing her vengeance would last forever. Dread pooled in my stomach. My ancestor placed the curse, I whispered. The same blood that created it might be the blood to lift it. Nalira grabbed my arm. Vesna, look at this. She was holding a journal, leather-bound and worn with age. I recognized the handwriting immediately. Seraphine's. The curse can only be broken by a vessel of Lisara's line, Nalira read aloud. The same blood that placed it must be the blood to lift it. I have searched for decades for a surviving vessel, hoping to bind them to my purpose. But they are extinct. The line ended. My son will die like his father. and I will rule through his heir as I have always ruled. Rage burned through me. She knew, I said. She knew I was a vessel the moment she saw me. She knew I could break the curse. But she doesn't want it broken. Nalira's voice was bitter. She wants Cormac dead. She wants to control his heir. She's been poisoning him for years, accelerating the curse, waiting for him to die. The blood seal on my powers. My mind raced. She said I needed to kill someone of my father's line to break it, but that's a lie, isn't it? There has to be another way. Nalira flipped through the journal frantically. There has to be something here. There is. The voice came from the doorway. We spun to find Seraphine standing there, her pale eyes blazing with fury. You foolish, meddling children! She stepped into the room and the temperature dropped. You should have left well enough alone. You've been killing your own son, I shouted. Your own child. My son was weak the moment he was born. Seraphine's voice dripped with contempt. Just like his father, just like every king of Valdron. They feel too much, care too much. They need to be controlled. You're a monster. I'm a survivor. She raised her hand, and ice began forming in her palm. And I will not let a thornwood bitch destroy everything I've built. She hurled the ice at my chest, but before it could reach me, something erupted from inside my body. Fire. Pure, blazing, golden fire that exploded outward and vaporized the ice in midair. Seraphine stumbled backward, her eyes wide with shock. Impossible, she breathed. Your powers are bound. I looked down at my hands. Flames danced across my palms, warm and bright and utterly under my control. And somewhere deep inside me, in that place where the dormant power had slept for so long, I felt chains shattering. They were bound, I said. But you made a mistake, Seraphine. What mistake? You told me a vessel's power responds to emotion, that it was locked away to keep me weak. I lifted my burning hands. But no seal can hold against a mother protecting her child, against a mate fighting for her bond, against a woman who has nothing left to lose. The flames blazed brighter. You made me angry enough to break them myself. The fire obeyed me like it had been waiting my entire life. I didn't understand how or why, but in that moment I didn't need to. I just needed to stop Seraphine from hurting anyone else. She threw ice at me again. I melted it with a thought. She tried to flee. I blocked the doorway with a wall of flame. Nalira, I said calmly, go to the guards. Tell them what we found. Have Seraphine arrested. You can't arrest me! Seraphine's composure finally cracked. I am the Queen Mother. I am the power behind this throne. You are a murderer. My voice was cold. And when Cormac wakes, he will decide your fate. If he wakes. Seraphine's smile returned, cruel and knowing. My poison is already in his veins, little vessel. Even if you break the curse, the damage may be beyond repair. Fear stabbed through me, but I forced myself to stay calm. Then tell me the antidote. There isn't one. You're lying. I stepped closer, and the flames around me burned brighter. You've been lying since the moment I arrived. Tell me the truth, or I will burn it out of you. Something flickered in Seraphine's eyes. Fear. She was afraid of me. The antidote, I repeated. Phoenix tears. The words came out in a rush, mixed with moonflower essence and the blood of the one who loves him most. 3 drops on his tongue before the next full moon, or he dies. Phoenix tears. Moonflower essence. My blood. I could do this. Nalira. I turned to find her staring at me with awe. Get the guards, now. She ran. I stayed, keeping Seraphine pinned with my fire, until the guards arrived and dragged her away. The next 12 hours were a blur. Nalira helped me search the archives for information on Phoenix tears. They were rare, nearly extinct, harvested from the nests of firebirds that lived only in the volcanic mountains to the south. It would take weeks to reach them, Nira said despairingly. Cormac doesn't have weeks. But I wasn't listening, and I was staring at my hands, at the flames that still flickered across my palms, warm and golden and impossibly familiar. Vessels channel the moon's power, I murmured. That's what Seraphine said. Yes, but fire is born from the sun. I looked up at Nira. But the moon reflects the sun's light. The power is the same, just transformed. Nalira's eyes widened. You think you can create phoenix tears? I think I can create something better. I closed my eyes and reached deep inside myself, to that place where the fire lived. But this time, I didn't call the flames outward. Instead, I pulled them inward, condensing them, purifying them, until they became something else entirely. When I opened my eyes, a single drop of liquid gold hovered above my palm. Vessel's tears, I whispered. Born from the same source as Phoenix fire. Nira was crying. You brilliant, impossible woman. I collected 3 drops in a crystal vial, then sliced my palm and added 3 drops of my blood. The mixture glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. The moonflowers, I said. Where can we find them? The palace gardens. Nira was already running. I'll get them. Go to Cormac. Go now. I ran. Cormac's chambers were silent when I arrived. The healers had given up. They stood in the corners, heads bowed, waiting for their king to die. Thornwick looked at me with hollow eyes. Your Majesty, I'm so sorry. Leave us. My voice brooked no argument. All of you, now. They filed out. I approached the bed where Cormac lay. He was almost entirely frozen now. Only his face remained visible beneath the ice, and even that was dusted with frost. But his lips were blue. His eyes were closed. He looked like a statue, beautiful and cold and utterly still. I'm here, I whispered, taking his frozen hand. I'm here, and I'm going to save you. Nira burst through the door, moonflowers clutched in her fist. I crushed the petals into the vial. The mixture blazed golden, then settled into a deep amber glow. 3 drops, I murmured, before the full moon. I looked out the window. The moon was rising, full and bright and watching. I had minutes. I pried Cormac's frozen lips apart and tilted the vial. 1 drop, 2 drops, 3 drops. The amber liquid disappeared into his mouth, and nothing happened. No. My voice cracked. No, it has to work. It has to. The ice on his chest began to glow. Faintly at first, then brighter. Golden light spreading through the frost like sunrise through clouds. The ice cracked, shattered, fell away in glittering shards. Cormac gasped. His eyes flew open, pale and bright and alive. Vesna, he breathed. I was sobbing as I threw myself into his arms. He was warm. For the first time since I'd known him, his skin was warm against mine. The curse, he whispered. I felt it break. I felt it shatter like chains falling away. Seraphine was poisoning you. I pulled back to look at his face. She's been maintaining the curse for decades, Cormac. My ancestor Lisara placed it, but your mother has been exploiting it ever since to keep you weak. His expression hardened. Where is she? In the dungeons. Nira stepped forward. Awaiting your judgment. Cormac looked at his sister for a long moment. You helped save me, he said quietly. Vesna did the saving. Nalira's voice was thick. I just pointed her in the right direction. Still. Cormac reached out and gripped her shoulder. Thank you, sister. Nira burst into tears. The following weeks brought revelations I never expected. Seraphine's trial revealed the full extent of her treachery. She had been manipulating the Valdron kings for 3 generations, using the curse to keep them weak and controllable. She had poisoned Cormac's father, accelerated his death when he grew too independent. She had tried to do the same to Cormac. The council sentenced her to eternal imprisonment in the ice caves beneath the palace. a fitting punishment for a woman who had used cold as her weapon. But Seraphine's crimes weren't the only secrets to emerge. During the investigation, Nira uncovered correspondence between Seraphine and a wolf from Ashenmore. Letters that explained why Draven had rejected me so suddenly, so completely, so unlike the man I had married. Dark magic, compulsion, a spell woven into his mind that severed our mate bond and replaced his love with hollow indifference. And the caster of that spell? Mireia. We rode to Ashenmore on the first day of spring. Cormac insisted on coming, along with 100 of Valdron's finest warriors. We weren't invading. We were simply paying a diplomatic visit to discuss the attempted assassination of Valdron's queen, because that's what Mireia's spell had been, an attempt to destroy me by proxy, using my own mate as the weapon. Draven met us at the border. I barely recognized him. He was gaunt, hollow-eyed, his once powerful frame wasted away to bone and sinew. His wolf stood beside him, but there was no light in those gray eyes. Vesna. His voice cracked. I remember. Moon help me. I remember everything. The spell broke, Mireia said from behind him, her voice dripping with venom. When you broke Seraphine's curse, the magic she gave me failed too. I looked at the woman who had destroyed my life. She was still beautiful, still golden-haired and amber-eyed and poison-sweet. But there was fear beneath her defiance now. She knew what was coming. You conspired with Seraphine to have me killed, I said calmly. You used dark magic on my mate to force him to reject me. You sent me and my infant son into the wilderness to die. You should have died. Mireia's composure cracked. You were supposed to die. When Seraphine approached me 2 years ago, she promised that if I helped remove you, she would make me Queen of Ashenmore. She gave me the compulsion spell, taught me how to use it on Draven, told me exactly when to strike. Her voice rose hysterically. She said once you were gone, no vessel would ever threaten her power again. She said I'd have everything. Seraphine is imprisoned for eternity. Cormac's voice was ice. And you will join her. Mireia went pale. No. No, you can't. Draven, tell them. Tell them I'm your mate. You were never my mate. Draven's voice was hollow. You are a parasite who crawled into my mind and made me betray the only woman I ever truly loved. He turned to me, and tears streamed down his ruined face. Vesna, I'm so sorry. I know it means nothing. I know I can never undo what I did. But I need you to know that it wasn't me. The man who rejected you, who threw you out, who let our son go nameless into the snow, that wasn't me. I looked at my former mate. I had spent months hating him, dreaming of this moment of seeing him broken and begging for forgiveness. I had imagined all the cruel things I would say, all the ways I would make him suffer. But standing here now, looking at the shell of the man I had once loved, I felt nothing but pity. I know it wasn't you, Draven. My voice was steady. And I forgive you. His knees buckled. He collapsed in the dirt, sobbing. Cormac's hand found mine. What would you have me do with him? He asked quietly. I considered. Draven had been a victim too. Mireia's puppet, Seraphine's pawn. He had lost everything. His mate, his son, his dignity, his pack's respect. He would spend the rest of his life knowing what he had done while under compulsion. That was punishment enough. Let him live, I said. He'll suffer more that way. Cormac nodded. And her? He gestured toward Mireia, who was being restrained by Valdron guards. I walked toward the woman who had orchestrated my destruction. She glared at me with undisguised hatred. You think you've won? She spat. You're still nothing. A rejected mate, a broodmare, I slapped her. The crack echoed across the silent gathering. I am Vesna of Valdron, I said, Queen of the Northern Territories, Vessel of the moon, breaker of the Valdron curse. I leaned closer. And you are nothing but a footnote in my story. I turned away. Take her to the ice caves, I told the guards. Let her keep Seraphine company for the rest of her miserable existence. Mireille's screams followed us as we rode away. Word reached us from Thornwood a week later. When news spread of what I had become, a vessel, a queen, the woman who broke the Valdron curse, my father had tried to flee. He was found dead in his chambers. Heart failure, they said. Though some whispered the moon itself had struck him down for binding a vessel's power against her will. I felt nothing when I heard. No grief, no satisfaction, just emptiness where a father's love should have been. He spent his whole life trying to suppress what I was, I told Cormac that night. He bound my powers, kept me weak, and treated me like a curse instead of a daughter. And look at you now. Cormac pulled me close. The most powerful woman in the 5 territories. Because of you? No. He tilted my chin up to meet his eyes. Because of you. You saved yourself, Vesna. You saved me. You saved an entire kingdom. We saved each other. He smiled and kissed me softly. We returned to Valdron as spring turned to summer, and the obsidian palace bloomed with new life. Ashwin was thriving now, a healthy, laughing boy learning to walk. He clutched my hand with his small fingers and toddled through the palace gardens, chasing butterflies while Cormac watched with undisguised adoration. He has your stubbornness, Cormac said, and your brooding stare. I do not brood. You absolutely brood. He laughed, a real laugh, warm and full, and pulled me into his arms. That night, Cormac took me to the highest tower of the palace. The full moon hung overhead, silver and bright, and for the first time I felt its power calling to me, not dormant, not suppressed, but awake and alive and thrumming through my veins. I want to claim you properly, Cormac said quietly. Not for contract, not for politics, because I love you, and I want everyone to know you're mine. Tears burned in my eyes. And I want to claim you, I whispered, because you're my mate, my true mate, the one I was always meant to find. He smiled, that rare, beautiful smile that transformed his face. Then let's do it together. He tilted his head, baring his throat. I leaned in and bit. The mate bond snapped into place like a key turning in a lock. I felt him flood into me, his thoughts, his emotions, his soul intertwining with mine. And I knew he felt me too, all of me, every scar and secret and hidden corner of my heart. Then he bit me. The sensation was overwhelming. Pleasure and pain and connection beyond anything I had imagined. I cried out, clinging to him, as the bond completed itself. When it was done, we stood holding each other, breathing hard, foreheads pressed together. I love you, he said. I love you too. And for the first time in my life, I believed that love wouldn't destroy me. It would set me free. 1 year later, the great hall of Valdron was decorated with moonflowers and silver ribbons. I stood at the altar, Cormac beside me, Ashwin clutching my hand with his small fingers, standing proud like the little prince he was. 300 wolves had gathered to witness something that had never happened before in the history of the Northern Territories. The naming ceremony for our daughter. Before the ancestors and the moon, the elder proclaimed, we welcome Lisara of Valdron, firstborn princess of the Northern Territories, heir to the power of the vessels and the strength of her royal line. I looked down at my daughter's face. She had her father's pale eyes and my dark hair. And already, even at 3 months old, I could feel the dormant power sleeping inside her. The same power that had saved us all. Lisara, Cormac murmured, named for the woman who started everything. And the woman whose legacy will transform. I smiled. From curse to blessing. The crowd erupted in cheers. Nira stood at the front, beaming with pride. Brinley wept happy tears, the woman who had nursed my son back to health when I had nothing to give. She caught my eye and smiled. I smiled back. Some bonds were forged in darkness but lasted forever. Even Thornwick cracked a rare smile, his ancient face softened by joy. That night, after the celebrations had ended and the children were asleep, Cormac and I stood on our balcony, looking out at the moon. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "Leaving your old life behind? Becoming queen of a kingdom you never knew existed?" I thought about the question. I thought about the naming ceremony where no one wanted me, the frozen wilderness where I almost died, the contract that was supposed to be loveless, and I thought about the man who had found me in the snow, who had offered me a contract and ended up giving me his heart, who had taught me that love wasn't weakness, it was the greatest strength of all. "No," I said, "I don't regret a single moment." Cormac pulled me close. "Neither do I." The moon watched over us, silver and eternal, as we held each other beneath its light. And somewhere in the nursery, though our daughter's eyes glowed faintly golden, the power of the vessels wasn't dead, it was just beginning. Thank you for listening to this story. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment letting me know what you thought. Your support means more than you know. And remember, even when the world rejects you, even when love seems impossible, even when you're stumbling through the darkness alone, the moon is always watching. And sometimes, the greatest blessings come from the deepest betrayals. Until next time.